In ex-Chancellor George Osborne's 2015 autumn statement, a new scheme was announced as part of an effort to properly fund apprenticeships in the UK. We're now just a few months out from the start of the scheme and many details remain unclear. So how can employers and potential apprentices prepare to get the best out of these changes? Well, I'm joined by Debbie Gardiner, Chief Executive at Cube Learning, to explain more. Hi, Debbie. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
Debbie, can you just tell us and explain really what the Apprenticeship Levy is and why it's being introduced?
OK, the Apprenticeship Levy is part of a wider funding reform, but it is one of the key parts. The levy is a 0.5% payment going to be made by large employers, so those that have got a payroll of 3 million or more a year. And that will go into a levy pot, and they will be able to use that to pay for apprentices themselves within their own business. The broader idea is that some employers, such as very large organisations like the NHS, won't use the whole of their levy pot, and some of that will then be put back into the system and fund apprenticeships in smaller employers, where the government will make a 90% contribution and this smaller employer will make a 10% contribution. There's also this thing called the Digital Apprenticeship Service, or DAS as we like to call it. And it will be really important that the levy payer employers get on board with that, because that's how they'll manage their funds, manage the account, be able to select a provider. And there are some tests and some pilots running. We have a couple of employers joining us at the Skills Funding Agency in Coventry next week. So Johnson's Dry Cleaners and Brighter Kind. And I'm sure there'll be other providers there bringing employers as well.
So what incentives are there for businesses to offer apprenticeships to young people?
There's a few things, really. So under the funding reforms, so starting from May 2017, the employers will be paid £1,000 for every 16 to 18-year-old apprentice they take on. And that will be paid across the duration up to 12 months. That will help them towards the costs of taking on a young person. There's also a group of employers that have been singled out, if you like, as those that have got less than 50 employees, so very small businesses, where actually costs have to be managed really tightly. And for those employers, the government will pay 100% of the funding for 16 to 18-year-old apprentices that come on board. And the other thing employers of all sizes actually might like to get involved with is a traineeship programme, where they can take on a trainee for anything up to 12 weeks. And it's almost like a training programme of try and see if it fits, really. So it's a training programme that prepares people for an apprenticeship and for jobs. And from there, they can take people on that would be suitable for apprenticeships as well.
And what will the impact of apprenticeships be on the skills sector?
It's an interesting one, because the impact of the changes will be massive on the sector, so how we get paid, where the funding comes from, cash flow, etc. But the biggest impact is actually going to be on the employers, so in any sector, where they'll have a greater opportunity to bring on apprentices and recruit young people in particular, but people of all ages, into apprenticeship positions and really start to shape their businesses so that they can improve their productivity and focus on what they're trying to achieve. Using their apprentices as part of the route through, really.
And Debbie, how confident are you that the levy will have the desired effect positively, and what are the potential barriers?
I'm pretty confident that the levy will have the desired effect. I'm also pretty confident that it will happen, because I know there's a lot of talk about it maybe being delayed. But I believe it will generate the funds we need to create the 3 million apprentices before the end of this Parliament. In terms of risks, there is a risk that some of the large employers that aren't, I suppose, totally engaged and on board will take on apprentices but not take it seriously. But I think in the majority, most people will see it as an opportunity to bring people into their business, really look at their objectives and make sure they can achieve what they're trying to achieve as a business and nurture people and end up with really good, solid employees.
And what other advice would you give employers ahead of the levy coming in next year?
Try to avoid thinking it as a bill and just a cost. Think about what they can get back, so how they can get a return on their investment. Start to really look at their objectives and talk to people like ourselves. Have a look at the .gov website. It gives people a lot of information. But see it as an opportunity rather than just an extra expenditure.
Now, you mentioned they're talking to people. So where can businesses or people interested in finding out more actually go to engage in those conversations?
They can certainly come to us. We'd be happy to speak to anybody that runs a business in England. You can have a look at our website, which is cube, with a Q, -learning.co.uk. The .gov website has got a lot of information on, not too difficult to navigate, so they should be able to find information that way. And really parents and sort of young adults and children approaching school leaving age should be able to go to the Careers Service, and I'd urge them to push for information about apprenticeships and make it something that people have to provide them with information about, because it's not always readily available.
Debbie Gardiner, thanks for your time.
Thank you.